Namaste, everybody. I'm sitting here giggling because I was popping my soda as he said he was bringing me in, and I'm like, I didn't have a chance to say something, but my thought was, oh God, he's going to turn the mic on just as I crack the soda, and he did. So, hello, hello, hello. Welcome, namaste, my witches. Oh boy. Welcome, welcome, welcome one and all back to another Tuesday night around the cauldron where we tell the truth, we honor the shadow, and we do not apologize for calling things what they are. Tonight's topic, though, is a heavy one. There is a content warning that we will be putting on the screen. It's not because it's complicated, it's actually very simple, but because it's been intentionally buried under politics, power, and massive amounts of bullshit for decades. We are talking about the Epstein case, the hypocrisy around the list, the sudden political break ranks happening in real time, and most importantly, what survivors like me have known our entire fucking lives. Power protects predators, and predators protect the systems that protect them. My concern is, was, and will always be the safety of my witchlings watching, so please, if you need to step away, do so. And I mean, y'all know it's bad, I got the pens. Alright, my lovelies, my darlings, my witchlings. Are we ready for this? All right. Namaste, witches, and welcome back to another Tuesday night around the cauldron where we are telling the truth, we honor the shadow, and we do not ever apologize for calling things what they are and calling out the bullshit. Tonight's topic is a very, very heavy one, not because it is complicated, but because it's intentionally been buried under politics, power, and massive amounts of bullshit for fucking decades. We are talking about the Epstein case, the hypocrisy around the list, the sudden political break ranks happening in real time, and most importantly, what survivors like me have known all our entire fucking damn lives. Power protects predators, and predators protect the systems that protect them. Now, before we dig in, I want to say this very, very, very clearly. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and rape. This whole story here that we're talking about is not theoretical for me. This is my lived experience and my bone deep truth. I am not sharing graphic details because this is not trauma porn, but my survival means my voice carries weight in this conversation, and I'm gonna fucking stand up and use it. All right, now that I've said that, our theme of the month is gratitude and reflection, and I am willing to bet y'all are wondering how the fuck those themes tie into something like this. But here's the thing. When we talk about gratitude in the witchy and yoga worlds, we're not talking about toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. We are talking about the deep kind of gratitude, the kind that grows in the cracks and the kind that blossoms in the aftermath, the kind that says, I made it, I am here, and I am not going to be silent anymore. And when we talk about reflecting on the year, well, hey, witches, this year has been one ginormous cosmic spotlight on the truth. So let's follow that light, shall we? Let's start. Let's start with the Epstein list, the obvious. The Epstein case didn't just expose individuals. It exposed systems, patterns, networks built like spider webs, sticky, layered, resilient, and reinforced by institutions that pretend to care about justice while knowingly participating in its erosion. And now suddenly, we've got politicians breaking ranks. We have people who were silent for years suddenly remembering they have voices now that it's convenient and now that it's politically advantageous, now that the public outrage is too loud to ignore. These are the same people who dismissed the survivors, who turned their pain into punchlines, and are now soaring up, down, left, right, and sideways that they want transparency. Bitch, please. Let's call that what it is here. Performative morality. Performative concern. Because here is the absolute truth survivors learn extremely young. Predators do not operate alone. They rely on silence, shame, and systems built to protect them. And those systems are made of people with power, be it political, financial, social, or patriarchal power, the whole fucking ass pyramid. You don't get a man like Epstein without enablers, without institutions willing to casually look the other way, without powerful people who benefit from that silence. And this is where my witchy self steps into this conversation, because witches work with patterns, with energy, with the truth beneath the surface. And the pattern here is beyond ancient. Predators protect the power structure, and the power structure protects the predators. It's a closed loop. until somebody breaks it, until a survivor speaks, until witnesses speak up, until the collective finally says enough. So tonight, as we reflect on this year, a year of revelations, reckonings, and raw fucking truth, I invite you to hold space for the survivors in your life. Maybe that survivor is you, like me. Maybe it's someone you love. Maybe it's someone who never told their story, but carries that scar in their bones, in their soul. Gratitude in this context doesn't mean being thankful for the trauma. It means being grateful for the strength it took to rise from it. Grateful for the clarity it gives us. Grateful for the bullshit detectors we refined in fire. Grateful that this year the cracks in the system have been impossible to ignore. And with that, let's step into our first segment. I'm going to take a quick sip. Sure, it's clogged. Y'all know it's rough if I'm hitting the pens while I'm doing this, right? All right, so let's start with the obvious. Everybody wants to talk about the Epstein list as if it's some scandalous guest list at a cursed dinner party. It's just the guest list from a soiree. People are seriously treating it like it's the main act, fireworks, boom, 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 look at the names, when in all reality, it's more like smoke from a much deeper, deeper, deeper fire. And yes, it matters who was involved. Yes, it matters who flew where, who met with whom, who looked the other way, who pretended not to notice young girls being trafficked right in front of their goddamn very eyes. It matters that powerful people had access and opportunity and still chose silence. But focusing only on the names, whether they're politicians, billionaires, celebrities, academics, royals, or the usual suspects of the elite, is honestly a distraction, a sleight of hand, a magician's trick. Because here's the thing, my witchlings, that list isn't the story. The list there is the symptom. The sickness runs much, much deeper. This wasn't a story about a few bad actors slipping through the cracks. No. It wasn't a case of one monster who just managed to outsmart the world. No. It wasn't even just about Epstein or Maxwell, because predators like them don't function in isolation. They don't build empires alone. They don't move through airports with underage girls without someone in authority noticing. They don't get sweetheart deals, decades-long passes, media protection, or political immunity by accident. This was a story about an entire system that just let them operate. A system built on wealth, influence, silence, and the ability to make consequences disappear. So let's talk about that system. Because that's where our real conversation lives. You don't get a man like Epstein without a network behind him. Financiers, lawyers, intelligence connections, politicians, media handlers, and elites who benefit from access to exploitation, or at the very least, benefit from keeping quiet. But we live in a culture that loves to scapegoat. We love the idea that if we just find the bad guy, we can clean our hands and go home. Except, this isn't a story that ends with one bad guy, or even 10 bad guys. This here is a story about a structure, a hierarchy that rewards power, protects power, defends power, and sacrifices the vulnerable every goddamn fucking time. And we know this because the moment a name drops, what does the world do? It divides itself into two camps. That's my guy. Oh, he'd never ever. That's their guy. Of course he would. People start arguing along political lines, not moral ones. The trauma becomes entertainment. The survivors, become footnotes. And the system keeps right on functioning exactly as it was designed to. This is the part that nobody wants to talk about. The obsession with the list is actually a convenient way to avoid facing the truth that the institutions we trust, courts, banks, media, governments, law enforcement, are built on foundations that allow this behavior to thrive. Think about it. How many warnings were ignored? How many survivors came forward and were dismissed, mocked, threatened, or discredited? How many people in power decided that protecting a predator was easier than protecting a child? And here's the real kicker. How many people still can't wrap their heads around the fact that the system is working exactly as intended? Because if power is designed to protect itself, and predators are often embedded in structures that give them access, credibility, and shields, then what happens when these two things overlap? Exactly what we saw. And here's where my perspective as a survivor comes in. When the world fixates on the names, survivors see something completely different. The repetition, the pattern, the utter and complete predictability. Because we've lived inside that system before, maybe in our homes, our schools, our workplaces, or our communities. We know what it looks like when someone is protected because of who they are, not what they've done. We know what it feels like when the adults who are supposed to keep you safe quietly step aside. We know the silence. We know the complicity. We know the whole fucking ass script by heart. So, when this list dropped, the world gasped. Survivors didn't. Not because we aren't horrified, because trust me, we are, but mostly because we recognize the machinery behind it. Because for us, the shock is not in the names. It's in the fact that anyone ever thought that this particular flavor of corruption existed in a vacuum. The list isn't the cancer. It's just the symptom. And if we start staring at the symptom, screaming about the symptom, obsessing over the symptom, we never force ourselves to confront the cause. We never ask the right questions. We never dismantle the system that made the list possible in the first place. So tonight, in this space, we're going deeper. We're going beyond the names, beyond the headlines, beyond the outrage cycle. We're pulling back the veil and talking about the architecture of silence, the cultural conditioning, the institutional rot, and the entitlement that allows predators to flourish under protection long before they are ever exposed. Because if we don't face that shit, these lists are just going to keep coming. And with that, we're going to stir the cauldron just a smidge bit deeper and step into our next segment. All right, checking in with chat right quick. So, hypocrisy across the political spectrum. Here's the thing, y'all. People only care about the list when it attacks their enemies, which is why they keep saying it's nothing but Democrats on the list, right? They weaponize it when it scores political points and ignore it when it exposes their own. And that, my witchlings, that right there is the rotten core of this entire whole fucking spectacle. We've got politicians on both sides of the aisle suddenly clutching their pearls about protecting the children. We must protect the children. We must protect the children. Oh my God, but what about the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Yeah, right. Like they haven't spent the last several fucking decades ignoring survivors, underfunding resources, gutting prevention programs, cutting mental health services, and propping up the exact systems that enable abuse to thrive. You can't cry about child safety on Tuesday and vote against survivor protections on Thursday. You can't perform outrage for the cameras while refusing to pass legislation that would actually help the real human beings harmed by predators. You can't posture like a moral authority if you're only outraged when the accused sits on the other team's bench. That's not justice. That's performance art. And lately, we're seeing a few figures break ranks. People who were silent for years suddenly speaking very loudly now. Some are calling for full transparency. Some are demanding investigations. Some are pointing fingers at people they once protected. Some are doing it for revenge or political leverage or because the winds have shifted and they smell opportunity. And honestly, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if the motive is political, personal, ego-driven, strategic, or even pure self-preservation. Because if their sudden honesty cracks open the door to accountability, I'll take that fucking crack. That did not sound right. Survivors have survived on smaller cracks than these. But here is the uncomfortable truth that the world still avoids. Systemic abuse doesn't care what party you belong to. Predators don't wear red or blue. They don't check voter registration before committing harm. They don't ask you who you caucus with before deciding whether you're vulnerable or not. The systems protecting them, institutions, wealth, secrecy, old boys networks, political power, all of that transcends party lines. Abuse is bipartisan. Cover-ups are bipartisan. Hypocrisy is bipartisan. Every time a new name surfaces, the public immediately divides itself half and half. Half rush to defend their guy, and half rush to attack the other side's guy. And the whole conversation just becomes a giant-ass tug of war between teams who care more about winning an argument than protecting actual children. Meanwhile, survivors get shoved into the margins again. Their stories get lost under partisan noise. Again, their pain gets used as a prop in someone else's political fucking theater again. And then, when the cameras turn off and the news cycle moves on, survivors are the ones left carrying the weight still. Again, and again, and again. I need to say this next part as clearly as I can. Survivors do not owe loyalty to any politician or party who only speaks up when it's convenient, when it's trending, when it benefits them, when silence becomes too costly. Survivors do not owe loyalty to systems that protected predators. We don't owe loyalty to institutions that ignored warning signs. We do not owe loyalty to leaders who weaponize our trauma one week and dismiss it the next. We owe loyalty to ourselves, to truth, to healing, to each other. And the hypocrisy? Oh, honey, it shows up everywhere. You've got people who were ready to burn the world down when a name from the opposing party appeared on a flight log, but fell mysteriously silent when someone from their own side showed up in the same documents. You've got folks who scream fake news when their favorite celebrity gets implicated and turn into moral crusaders when it's somebody they already disliked. You've got commentators claiming to care about the victims while using those self-same victims as ammunition in a culture where they have no intention of resolving. It's fucking sickening. It's predictable. And it's exactly how systemic abuse survives. Let's call it out plainly, all right? If you only believe survivors when it's convenient, you don't believe survivors. If you only want justice when it makes your enemies look bad, you don't want justice. If you're outraged only when it fits your political narrative, you are part of the problem. You know, as a survivor, it is almost surreal to watch the public finally wake up to what we've been screaming into the void for years. It is surreal watching politicians act shocked that powerful men abused their positions. Where the fuck have you been? Do you know how many reports, investigations, testimonies, lawsuits, documentaries, and whispered warnings have been ignored? Do you know how many survivors have been dismissed because holding powerful people accountable was inconvenient? Both parties have covered for predators. Both parties have minimized survivor voices. Both parties have benefited from systems that prioritize power over protection. And you know what? I'm not giving anyone gold stars for just showing up late to the truth. So when anyone, breaks ranks, I don't mistake that for virtue. But I do recognize it as leverage. If political ego fractures that wall of silence, fuck yeah, amen, good. If partisan rivalry forces documents into the light, booyah, good. If self-interest leads to testimony that survivors have begged for, fuck yeah. Because I don't need purity. I don't need heroes. I need the goddamned truth to come out. And if hypocrisy cracks that door open, we'll wedge that door so wide it can never be fucking closed again. All right, y'all. Let's stir the pot a little bit deeper and check out segment 3. When you're a survivor, especially a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, you see patterns long before the world catches up, long before the headlines, way before the documentaries, and long before the public finally gasps and says, oh, how could this happen? Because for survivors, hey, we've already lived the how. We've seen the blueprint. We've survived the pattern. Patterns like the grooming, the slow burn, the slow erosion of boundaries, the trust building that was never trust at all, the recruitment, someone always scouting, always selecting the vulnerable, the isolated, the unheard, the money trail, because abuse this big always has funding, always has investors, always has someone who benefits financially from someone else's pain. The silence, the enforced kind, the threatening kind, the we don't talk about that kind. the complicity, the adults who saw something and pretended they didn't, the shaming, the whispers, the blame, the accusations that somehow you invited it or misunderstood it or provoked it, the disbelief, the way people will bend reality into fucking origami before they admit someone they admire could harm a child, the erasure, the way your story becomes inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unwanted. The power imbalance. The predator always having more of something. Age, money, status, reputation, control. The doors that only open for the rich and the connected. Those doors that close on survivors just as fast. Nothing about this case is new for survivors. Absolutely nothing. Not the grooming, not the island, not the money, the network, not the powerful men pretending they didn't know. Not the girls being picked up in vulnerable places like malls, schools, parks, foster homes, neighborhoods where the adults are too overwhelmed to notice who's circling. None of this is new. The only difference is scale. The money was bigger. The names were bigger. The Rolodex was bigger. The private jets were bigger. The houses were bigger. The resources for silence were bigger. The political reach was bigger. The media protection, far bigger. But the pattern? Fucking same old shit. We have all lived through that shit. And this is what survivors need the world to understand. When you grow up being harmed by someone more powerful than you, you learn the truth of human behavior in a way absolutely nobody wants to admit. You learn that people will ignore the harm happening right in front of them if it inconveniences them. You learn that institutions will protect the abuser because the abuser has more value to them than you do. You learn that there are entire systems designed to make you question your own memories while simultaneously protecting the person who hurt you. You learn that reporting doesn't guarantee safety. Sometimes it guarantees retaliation. You learn that silence isn't consent, it's survival. So, when the world reacted to the Epstein news like it was some shocking plot twist, survivors didn't flinch. Not because we weren't horrified. Trust me, we were. But because we recognized the pattern instantly. The scale was new. The pattern was not. And here's the part that hits even harder. For decades, when survivors tried to point out these patterns in their own lives, the grooming, the complicity, the institutional failures, the world blew us off, saying we were exaggerating, misunderstanding, or being dramatic. But now that rich and powerful men are implicated, now everyone is suddenly a detective. Suddenly everyone cares about patterns of abuse. Suddenly people are capable of understanding how predators build networks, buy silence, and groom communities. It is fucking infuriating. And it's validating. Both can be true at once. What is new is that people are finally being forced to look at it. Forced to acknowledge that predators don't exist in isolation. They exist in ecosystems. Ecosystems built on protection, access, and silence. And for survivors, this moment is insanely complicated. On the one hand, we are relieved that the world is paying attention. On the other hand, we're fucking exhausted that it took a billionaire trafficking ring for people to believe what we've been saying since we were kids. It shouldn't take private islands and famous names to validate a pattern survivors have been warning about for decades. And let's talk about the emotional whiplash this creates. Because when you're a survivor watching this shit unfold, it's not just a news story. It's a mirror. It's every moment you were disbelieved, every adult who chose convenience over protection, every institution that failed you, every time you swallowed your own voice because the truth felt too dangerous. Epstein is not the exception. He is the pattern made visible, and that visibility brings up everything. For so many survivors, this moment has reopened wounds. Not in a re-traumatizing way necessarily, but in a clarifying way. Like, oh, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just my family. It wasn't just that one teacher or coach or neighbor. It wasn't just that one moment in childhood that I still can't speak aloud. It was a system, a culture, a structure built to protect the people who harm and silence the people they harm. And that realization is both heavy and fucking liberating. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you recognize the pattern on a global scale in cases like this one, you can finally understand that what happened to you was not a personal failure, was not a misunderstanding, was not a problem you caused, and not a shame you deserved. It was not your fault. It was a system doing what systems do, and you survived that system. You survived a pattern designed to break you. That is not small. That is not insignificant. That is not something you owe silence to. So, when survivors speak up about this case, what this case really means, we're not doing it to relive trauma. We're doing it because we recognized the blueprint. We're doing it because we want the world to finally stop pretending that harm only happens in dark alleys by strangers. It happens in gilded rooms, behind expensive doors, inside powerful families, in communities that pride themselves on appearances, in institutions built on prestige, in systems designed to keep the vulnerable quiet. This case didn't reveal the existence of a monster. It revealed the ecosystem that grows them. And if the world is finally ready to look at that, really look at that, then survivors are ready to be heard. All right, my witchlings, let's take a hit and keep going. One of the oldest roles of the witch, the wise woman, the seer, the outsider, is shadow work for the collective. Before witches were demonized, before we were burned, before patriarchal systems tried to erase us, we were the ones who walked between worlds. We saw what others refused to see. We named what others were too afraid to name. We stood at the edge of the village and read the energies everyone else ignored. That has always been our job. Witches are mirrors. Witches are truth tellers. Witches are the torch carriers who walk straight into the darkness and come back with a map. We name what others refuse to see. We refuse silence. We refuse to let power gaslight truth. And in that sense, Talking about systemic abuse is witchcraft. Talking about systems that protect predators, witchcraft. Talking about patterns that enable harm, that's spell work. That is alchemy. That's transmuting poison to clarity. Because when you take something festering and hidden and drag it into the light, that's illumination. When you refuse to let it stay in the shadows where it thrives, that's protection magic. That's warding. That's banishing. That is cleansing fire burning through the centuries of generational silence. And when you speak truth about a system designed to protect itself, that right there is hex breaking in its purest form. Don't get it twisted. Calling out a system is not the same as accusing individuals of crimes. I ain't here to name names. I am not here to point fingers at specific people or claim guilt where there has not been due process. That's not my lane. That's not my job. And frankly, that's not the power I am working with here tonight. I am not here to name people. I am here to name patterns. Because systems don't crumble when you expose one person. They crumble when you reveal the architecture behind the abuse, the enabling, the secrecy, the hierarchies, the access, the cultural conditioning, the institutional silence. And witches? We've always been the ones who see systems. We sense the subtle lines of energy, the power dynamics, the hidden currents, the unspoken rules, long before those in power ever acknowledge them. We see the webs. We feel the threads. We notice when something is out of alignment, when something is rotten, when something is cloaked in illusion. And once you see that kind of truth, you can't unsee it. Shadow work is not just personal. It's collective. It's cultural. It's generational. And what we're doing right here, right now, in this very conversation is collective shadow work. We're cracking open a wound that humanity has refused to treat for centuries. We're pulling the infection to the surface. We're saying this is the rot. This is what festers when power is unchecked. This is what happens when the vulnerable are sacrificed to protect the comfortable. And exposing a system that protects predators is a form of ancestral justice. For every survivor who was silenced, for every child who wasn't believed, for every adult who carried the shame that was never theirs to carry, for every human who was blamed, dismissed, punished, or thrown away because telling the truth was too inconvenient for those in charge. When we speak these truths, we honor them. We validate them. We lift them out of the shadows where they were forced to hide. We hold space for their stories, the spoken ones, the unspoken ones, and the ones locked so deep in bone memory that even they struggle to surface. Naming the system is how we say, I see you. I believe you. You were right. Your pain was and is real, and what was done to you is not your fault. For so many survivors, this is the first time in their lives that the world has been forced to acknowledge what they've always known. Predators don't operate alone. They don't thrive alone. They don't build empires alone. They're supported, protected, funded, hidden, excused, enabled, sanitized, reframed as misunderstood or too important to lose or troubled. And naming the system instead of the scapegoat is witchcraft. It is the oldest magic. It is the power of truth spoken without apology. Witches have always known that you can't heal what you won't face. You can't cleanse what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't transform what you insist on pretending is fine. Shadow work demands honesty. It demands courage. It demands that we sit with the uncomfortable truth until it stops controlling us from the shadows. And when we name the system that protects predators, we take back power. We take back the narrative. We take back the voice that was taken from us. This is not anger. This is not vengeance. This is liberation. This is reclamation. This is the witch's role in the world, to shine light exactly where others fear to look. And if you ask me, this moment right now is an initiation for all of us, for survivors, for allies, for the collective. Shadow work is uncomfortable, but it is how we break generational cycles. It's how we dismantle the systems built on harm. It's how we honor the ancestors who weren't allowed to speak their truth. All right, witchlings. Take a breath. Take a drink. Ground yourselves. We're about to move into the next section. Let's check with the chat real quick. Make sure everybody's doing okay. Oh, thank you. I just read Zedediah's comment. Oh, Zenny. Hey, Will. Glad to see you're here. Yeah. Yep, I see this. Awesome. Hey, T-Rex, I see you. Hello, Julius. Oh, I needed to take a break from that and check in with you guys. I had to take a second and check in with you guys because this is a rough topic. Because, yeah, what I've lived through. And so I've got these. All right. Let's move on to... let's move into reflecting on the year and how our Sanskrit ties into everything here. Cute. All right, and because our theme this week is reflecting on the year and our... Will you quit crawling out of my ear? All right, there we go. Now, because our theme of this week is reflecting on the year and our Sanskrit word is Samīkṣā, compassionate reflection, here's how all of this ties in. Reflection isn't just about looking at our own lives. It's not limited to journaling our goals and assessing our choices or deciding what worked and what didn't. That's part of it, yes, part of it. But true reflection is so much bigger, so much deeper, so much more courageous than the tidy New Year style of looking back. Samīkṣā asks us to witness truth with clarity, without flinching, without filtering, without painting it pretty. Let's not whitewash our truth here, right? It asks us to see what is, not what we wish it were. It asks us to tell the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable, especially when the truth is uncomfortable. And right now, we're in a moment where clarity is uncomfortable as all fucking hell. Samīkṣā isn't passive reflection. It's not sitting cross-legged in the grass, humming to ourselves while the world burns behind us, although that does sound rather and enticing. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not slapping a gratitude sticker over a gaping wound. Samīkṣā is compassionate truth-telling with the emphasis on compassionate. Not soft, not sugar-coated, not gentle to the point of meaningless. Compassionate as in honest, awake, grounded, and rooted in a desire for collective healing. Compassionate reflection means we don't look away from the systems that harm us. We don't bury the stories that make us uncomfortable. We don't pretend the shadows don't exist because they're inconvenient. Compassion doesn't mean silence. Compassion means clarity. And what I see as a survivor, as a witch, a yoga teacher, a veteran, a mother, and a fucking human being is that we cannot heal as a society until we stop protecting the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. We cannot keep saying never again while allowing the same patterns to repeat. We cannot keep pretending predators are anomalies instead of products of the environments that birthed them. We cannot keep comforting the abusers while telling the survivors to be quiet, be polite, be patient, or be forgiving. Reflection without accountability is just avoidance dressed up in spirituality. So when I look back on this year, what I see is this. That veil has been ripped open. Systems we were told to trust have been exposed. Institutions that once felt untouchable now look suspect. People who once seemed righteous have revealed their shadows. And the collective, finally, is beginning to understand patterns survivors have known our entire lives. This year has been a mirror. A brutal mirror. An honest mirror. A mirror that shows the rot and the beauty at the exact same time. And Samīkṣā asks us, what will you do with what you see? How will you hold it? How will you respond? Because reflection isn't the end of the process. Reflection is the doorway. It's the sacred pause before aligned action. It's the breath before the spell. It's the moment where we look at the truth fully, without denial, without numbing, without hiding, and say, this is what is. Now, what must change? For survivors, reflection is complicated. We spend so much of our lives being told not to look back, to move on, to let it go, to get over it, to stay quiet, to quit living in the past. But Samīkṣā says, look, witness, acknowledge, validate your own truth. And when we witness the truth of a system, when we look at the bigger pattern, the wider cycle, the collective dysfunction, we are doing sacred work. We are doing the work our ancestors could not do. We are doing the work that breaks generational silence. And here's the part people miss. Compassionate reflection means we tell the truth because we want healing, not because we want revenge. Oh, whoops. Excuse me. I added a word. Here's the part many people miss. Compassionate reflection means we tell the truth because we want healing, not because we want revenge, not because we want chaos, not because we want a witch hunt. Ironic phrase, but fitting. We speak the truth because we want a world where children are safe, where survivors are believed, where institutions are accountable, where power is not a shield for abuse. That is Samīkṣā. That is compassionate reflection. So as we reflect on this year, on the unveiling, the unraveling, the uncomfortable truths, the collective awakening, I want you to ask yourself, what are you being called to witness? What truth do you see now that you didn't see a year ago? Where have you been silent because silence felt safer? Where have you noticed a pattern that you can finally name? And what does compassionate reflection look like in your own life? Because it doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be loud. Reflection is spell work done in the privacy of your own heart. Look clearly, feel deeply, speak truthfully. And as we move into our closing segment of this episode, remember this. Samīkṣā isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. It's about seeing the truth with compassion so we can choose differently moving forward. If the world is finally ready to look at patterns of harm, then witchlings, we are ready to reflect on them with clarity and courage. All right, deep breath. We're coming into the home stretch here. Sip. I'm not going to give you a 5-step plan. I'm not going to tell you to go scream into the void. I don't think you'd appreciate it much anyway. And I'm not going to tell you to doom scroll yourself into trauma. What I am going to tell you is this. Pay attention. Trust patterns, not PR statements. Believe survivors. Refuse to turn away when power tries to distract you. And don't let anyone ever tell you that silence is safer. Because silence is only safer for the abuser. And let me say this clearly. This is not a call to action. I'm not sitting here telling you to march or to vote or to call someone or to burn anything down. Fuck no. This isn't about activism tonight. This isn't about politics. This isn't about telling you what to do with your voice or your energy. This is a call to awareness, a call to seeing clearly, a call to staying awake in a world that desperately wants you to go back to sleep. Because what allows systemic abuse to continue again and again and again and again isn't a lack of outrage. Oh, no. We've got plenty of outrage. Outrage pours like lava every time a story breaks. It spills across social media, floods the comment sections, burns white hot for 48 hours, and then cools into silence until the next scandal erupts. Outrage is easy. Awareness is hard. And sustained awareness, that's the rarest magic of all. Awareness is not the practice of looking away. It's noticing the patterns even when you're exhausted. It's recognizing the shifts in tone when institutions scramble to save face. It's hearing the dog whistles behind the polished statements. It's catching the way the narrative gets softened to protect the powerful. It's paying attention to what isn't said, the missing names, the missing accountability, the missing accountability, the missing empathy. Awareness is the internal voice that whispers, "This feels familiar," even when the world insists it's unprecedented. Survivors know that voice well. We've lived by that voice. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm inviting you to see. Seeing is its own form of resistance. Seeing is its own form of magic. Seeing is its own protection spell. Because once you see a system, really, really see it, you can't unsee it. You can't be gaslit back into pretending it's fine. You can't be manipulated into believing the illusion again. Awareness breaks enchantments. Awareness breaks silence. Awareness breaks generational cycles. And look, I know the temptation. I know how easy it is to let yourself scroll past the uncomfortable things. I know how easy it is to say, someone else will deal with this. I know how seductive numbness can be, especially for those of us who have been through trauma. The nervous system learns to shut down as a survival mechanism, but awareness doesn't mean self-harm. Awareness doesn't mean re-traumatizing yourself. Awareness doesn't mean drowning in every horrific detail. Awareness means simply not pretending the monster doesn't exist. It means recognizing patterns without needing to absorb all the pain behind them. It means acknowledging reality without sacrificing your sanity. It means staying awake without staying on fire. Awareness is spacious, is grounded, is measured. Awareness is compassionate. Awareness says, I see what is happening, and I refuse to be fooled by the performance around it. And the more you cultivate awareness, the more you begin to understand why so many survivors reacted the way they did when the Epstein news resurfaced. We didn't gasp. We recognized the blueprint. Awareness gives you the ability to hold multiple truths at once, that individuals are responsible for their actions, and that systems shape the conditions in which those actions flourish. That harm is personal and structural, that silence is chosen and incentivized. And here's something I want you to really hear. Awareness is not activism. Awareness is not obligation. Awareness is not assignment. Awareness is simply choosing to stay honest with yourself. And honestly, honesty is revolutionary in a world built on denial. Honesty is witchcraft. Honesty is yoga. Honesty is Samīkṣā, the compassionate reflection we spoke about earlier. Honesty is the quiet act of looking at something painful and saying, I'm not afraid to name what is true. Not because you want to fix it all. Not because you want to take on the world. Not because you think you have the answers. But because truth deserves to be witnessed. So tonight, I'm not asking you to act. I'm not asking you to join a movement. I'm not asking you to join a crusade. I am asking you to stay awake. I am asking you to notice when patterns repeat. I'm asking you to listen when survivors speak. I'm asking you to question the narratives that feel just a little bit too polished. I'm asking you to let your intuition, your compassion, and your lived humanity guide the way you see the world. Not react, not perform, just see. And if you take nothing else from this entire episode, take this. Silence is only safer for the abuser, never for the survivor, never for the child, never for the vulnerable, never for the truth. Awareness is how we break that cycle, gently, steadily, without burnout, without guilt. Awareness is enough. Awareness is powerful. Awareness is the first crack of dawn in a world that has been midnight for far too fucking long. All right, witches, take a sip, take a stretch, exhale the heaviness. We are going to close we are going to open our circle with care. Did I take a sip? Thank you for being here for this conversation. Truly, thank you. Thank you for being here for this conversation. Truly, thank you. This was not an easy episode. It wasn't light or fluffy or even made for comfort, but it was made for truth, and I am grateful you stayed with me through it. Thank you for listening with an open heart, even when it was heavy. Thank you for staying present, even if parts of this stirred old shadows or awakened some new questions. Thank you for letting me speak from a place that isn't theory, isn't speculation, isn't abstract outrage, but lived truth. There is something powerful about being witnessed. There is something powerful about being heard. And there is something sacred about gathering around this cauldron every week and choosing honesty over denial, awareness over numbness, clarity over comfort. Tonight wasn't about drama. Tonight wasn't about sensationalism. Tonight wasn't about pointing fingers or playing politics or joining the noise of 1,000 fragmented narratives. Tonight was about seeing. Tonight was about naming. Tonight was about acknowledging the truth that systems don't change until we're willing to reflect on them without flinching. And if you're here listening to this, holding the weight of these words with me, you are part of that reflection. You are part of that awareness. You are part of the quiet shift happening beneath the noise. I want to remind you, especially if you're a survivor, that nothing in your story makes you less worthy of love, belonging, or connection. Nothing that was done to you defines you. Your strength is not measured by how loudly you speak your truth, but by the fact that you're still here at all. How many of us aren't? And your voice matters. Whether you whisper it, shout it, speak it to a single trusted friend, write it in a journal, or hold it in your heart for now, or even just simply survived with it tucked in your bones. Your voice matters. Your existence matters. Your healing matters. Your presence matters. Excuse me. This is the part of the show where I remind you of something I say every day because it's always true. You are loved. You are wanted. You are needed. And not because you're productive, not because you're strong all the time, not because you have it all figured out, not because you show up perfectly. You are loved because you exist. You are wanted because you are here. You are needed because this world is better with you in it. Before we open our circle tonight, I want you to take one slow inhale with me. And one long exhale. Let the heaviness drain out of your shoulders. Let your jaw unclench. Let your spine lengthen. Let your breath soften. You are safe in this moment. You are held in this moment. And you are not alone. Oof. As we end tonight's episode, I want to offer you a kind of closing blessing similar to what I do with my daily draws, the kind of blessing that wraps itself around your spirit and whispers, "You made it!" All right. See if I can do this. All right. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. All right, here it is. May your heart be steady, even in the presence of truth. May your shadows reveal wisdom, not fear. May your intuition stay sharp and your compassion stay deep. May your boundaries be firm and your breath be gentle, your spirit be unshakable. May you walk through this world with clarity, courage, and softness all at the same time. And may you always remember that you deserve safety, you deserve peace, and you deserve healing that does not hurt to hold. Spread love, spread joy, spread kindness. There is already more than enough darkness here in this world. Be the light that someone else can look toward when their own flame feels small. Be sure your loved ones know how you feel. Until next week, namaste, witchlings.